Hello everyone. Today's topic is endoperioral lesion. Coming to the topic learning outcomes. State the anatomic pathways of communication between dental pulp and periodontium. Describe the effects of pulpal disease and endodontic procedures on periodontium. Describe the effects of periodontal disease and procedures on pulp. Classify endoperioral lesions. Describe the clinical features, investigations, differential diagnosis and treatment plan for each type of endoperioral lesion. What is endoperioral lesion? Lesion with submarginal or intrabony periradicular bone loss of pulpal and or periodontal origin that communicates with oral cavity through a probing defect. So a lesion occurs due to bacterial infection which originates from pulpal or periodontal origin. We can simply call it as endoperioral lesion. Now we can talk about the pathways of communication between the pulp and periodontium. There are certain anatomic pathways and non-physiologic pathways. So the major one is apical foramen, axillary canals, dentinal tubules. And if you talk about the non-physiologic pathways, iatrogenic factors, then vertical root fractures. First one is apical foramen. It is the principal and most direct route of communication between the pulp and periodontium. Bacterial and inflammatory byproducts may exit readily through the apical foramen to cause periapical pathosis. The apex may serve as a portal of entry for the inflammatory byproducts from deep periodontal pockets to the pulp. Lateral and axillary canals. These may be present anywhere along the route. Patent axillary and lateral canals may serve as a potential pathway for the spread of bacterial byproducts. 30 to 40% of all teeth have lateral or axillary canals, and the majority of them are found in apical third of the root. Dentinal tubules. Exposed dentinal tubules in areas of denuded cementum may serve as a communication path between pulp and periodontium. In root, dentinal tubules extend from pulp to the dentino-cemented junction. They range in size from 1 to 3 microns in diameter, through which bacteria and their toxins can enter. Additional avenues of communication between the pulp and periodontium. Developmental malformations such as palatogingival grooves of maxillary incisors. These usually begin in central fossa, cross the cingulum, and extends apically with the varying distances. Perforations. These may result from extensive carious lesions, resorption, or from operator error. Vertical root fractures. These can produce deep periodontal pockets and localized destruction of alveolar bone. This occurs as a result of trauma, which act as a portal of entry for the irritants from the root canal to the periodontal ligament. So again, we'll talking about the pathways of communication. Major one is the apical foramen, and rest all are acting as the other pathways for the communication between the pulp and periodontium. Coming to the endodontic disease and periodontium. When the pulp becomes inflamed or necrotic, inflammatory byproducts may leach out through the apic, lateral, and axillary canals, as well as the dentinal tubules, to trigger a inflammatory vascular response in the periodontium. So, if the pulp is inflamed, there will be a necrotic action, that is the inflammatory process, which triggers a vascular response in the periodontium, and it results in an abscess. That is what normally, if an endodontic disease happens, and it will be reflecting as a periodontal breakdown. When it comes to the periodontal disease and the pulp, the effect of periodontal inflammation on the pulp is controversial and conflicting studies exist. It has been suggested that periodontal disease has no effect on the pulp, at least until it involves the apex. On the other hand, some studies suggest that the effect of periodontal diseases on pulp is degenerative in nature, including an increase in calcification, fibrosis, and collagen resorption in the pulp. It has been reported that the pulpal changes resulting from periodontal diseases are more likely to occur when the apical foramen is involved. There are basically two sorts of studies, you can see that, and most commonly everyone prefers or everyone takes that if the pulp and changes resulting from the periodontal disease are more likely to occur when the apical foramen is involved. That is the most commonly one. If the apex is involved, there is a high chance of pulpal involvement. Coming to classification. Simon, Glick and Frank classified endoperioral lesions into 5. First is primary endodontic lesion with secondary periodontal involvement, primary periodontal lesion with secondary endodontic involvement, and true combined lesion. First one is primary endodontic disease. An acute exacerbation of a chronic periapical lesion on a tooth with a necrotic pulp to drain through the periodontal ligament into the gingival sulcus. This clinical presentation mimics the presence of a periodontal abscess or a deep periodontal pocket. When endodontic infection drains through the periodontal ligament, the pocket is very narrow and deep. In reality, it is a sinus tract of pulpal origin that opens through the periodontal ligament and not break down due to periodontal disease. A similar situation can occur where drainage from the apex of a molar tooth extends coronally into the furcation area. These cases resemble a through and through furcation defect of periodontal disease. For diagnostic purpose, it is imperative to trace the sinus tract by inserting a gutta percha cone and exposing one or more radiographs to determine the origin of the lesion. The sinus tract of endodontic origin is readily probed down to the root apex, where no increased probing depth would otherwise exist around the tooth. So the primary endodontic disease will heal following root canal treatment. The sinus tract extending into the gingival sulcus or the furcation area disappears at an early stage once the necrotic pulp has been removed and the root canals are well sealed. So primary endodontic disease. There is a endodontic problem which drains into the periodontium and it is seen as an abscess form in the gingival sulcus. That is basically we call it as primary endodontic disease. It mostly occurs with a non-vital teeth because endodontic disease means pulp is inflamed and the tooth is gone into non-vitality and it is necrosed and it drains into the periodontium and there won't be any breakdown, but there will be a gingival sulcus in the form of a drainage. That is what we call as primary endodontic disease, and there will be deep narrow pockets and the treatment is just an endodontic therapy and it will heal by itself. Coming to the example, you can see a pre-op radiograph, first one, second one after RCT, then the third one 2-year follow-up. You can see when you compare to the first one, there is healing take place at the root apex. Another example, there is a periapical radiograph. You can see the first one, there is periapical defects and there is a narrow pocket. 1-year follow-up after root canal therapy, you can see the periapical defects are gone and the canal is also gone. So primary endodontic lesion will heal by an endodontic therapy. Second one is primary periodontal disease. It is caused by periodontal pathogens. It is the result of a progression of a chronic periodontitis apically along the root surface. Pulp test yields a clinically normal pulp reaction. Frequent accumulation of pulp, plaque and calculus are seen throughout the dentition. Periodontal pockets are wider and are generalized comparing to primary endodontic disease. The prognosis depends upon the stage of periodontal disease and the efficacy of the periodontal treatment. So primary periodontal disease completely occurs due to periodontal pathogens and there will be frequent accumulation of plaque and calculus. Mostly the pulpal activity will be vital, that is pulp test yields a normal reaction. Then periodontal pockets are wider and generalized. Treatment is perio treatment and the prognosis depends upon the stage of periodontal disease. Another example, you can see there is a deep alveolar bone loss and a periapical lesion. So you can see a GP tracing and it is traced along the mesial aspect of the root and the tooth was tested positive to vitality test. After extraction, you can see a mesioradicular developmental groove which acts as a portal of entry for the bacteria. Another example, 3.6 was referred for RCT. The tooth tested vital to cold. Referring dentist insisted endo to be done and etiology was periodontal disease. No bony healing took place. So you have to find the cause properly, then according to that you have to treat. Otherwise the treatment won't be complete if the diagnosis is wrong. A periapical lesion of endodontic origin will not occur in the presence of normal vital pulp. So coming to primary endo with secondary perio. So you remember what is primary perio? Just a primary problem of endodontic lesion just evolving around the gingival sulcus. Whereas this happens with a suppurative primary endodontic disease remains untreated, it may become secondary involved with a periodontal breakdown. Whereas in primary lesion there is no periodontal breakdown, the gingival sulcus is only affected, whereas here there will be a periodontal breakdown. So plaque forms at the gingival margin of the sinus tract and leads to plaque induced periodontitis in the area. So the primary cause is endo, and if it is left untreated it causes periodontal breakdown. So the pathway of inflammation into the periodontium is through apical foramen and axillary and lateral canals. You can see the arrow marks in the picture. So the treatment and prognosis are now different, and those simply having endo or perio. The tooth now requires both endodontic and periodontal treatment. If the endo treatment is adequate, the prognosis depends on the severity of periodontitis and the efficacy of the perio treatment. With endo treatment alone, only the part of the lesion will heal to the level of secondary periodontal lesion. Root fractures and perforations may also present as primary endo with secondary periodontal involvement. So primary endo with secondary perio, if a primary lesion left untreated, it may involve the periodontium and it is secondarily infected. So a marginal periodontitis will occur and it causes periodontal breakdown. And now the treatment, when it comes to the treatment, you have to do both perio treatment and endo treatment. So first you do the endo treatment, look, observe, and if there is a improvement then you continue with the perio treatment. So here one example, preoperative infraradicular defect extends into the apex. Postoperative, you can see RCT is done. 1 year follow-up, you can see the resolution of most of the periradicular lesion. However, a bony defect at the furcation remains. So now the perio treatment is necessary for healing. Coming to primary perio with secondary endo. In this case, apical progression of the periodontal pocket continues until the apical tissues are involved. The pulp may become necrotic as a result of infection entering through the apical foramen. So primary perio occurs as a result of pathogens. If you leave it untreated, it progresses and it involves the apical foramen. Through the apical foramen, it enters the pulp. So the progression of periodontitis by the way of lateral canals and apex to induce a secondary endodontic lesion. In picture again you can see along the margins it enters through the lateral canals or through the apical foramen. So in single rooted teeth the prognosis is usually poor as the periodontal breakdown is very severe and necessitating extraction. In molar teeth the prognosis may be better since not all roots may suffer the same loss of supporting tissue. Root resection may be considered as a treatment or intervention. Even though the unusual treatment of periodontal disease can also lead to secondary endodontic involvement. Lateral canals and dentinal tubules may be opened to the oral environment by scaling and root planing or surgical flap procedures. So surgical consideration, full thickness flap, scaling, curettage or osseous contouring procedures, root resection, hemisection, radisection, bicuspidation can be considered. Root resection, sectioning and removal of one or two roots of a multi-rooted teeth. Hemisection, removal or separation of root with its accompanying crown portion of mandibular molars. Radisection, newer terminology for removal of roots of maxillary molars. Bicuspidation, separation of mesial and distal roots of mandibular molars along with its crown portion, where both segments are then retained individually. So there is one example, you can see 1.3, evidence of horizontal bone loss as well as periapical radiolucency. The crown was intact but vitality tests were negative. Postoperative radiograph, you can see there is a lateral canal was exposed to the oral environment due to the bone loss. So it can act as the portal entry for the bacteria. Coming to true combined disease. So true combined endoperioid disease occur less frequently than other endoperioid problems. It is formed when an endodontic disease progressing coronally joins with an infected periodontal pocket progressing apically. The degree of attachment loss in this type of lesion is large and prognosis is thus guarded, particularly for single rooted teeth. Concomitant endoperioid lesion is additional classification, and in this condition the endo and perioid disease are two separate and distinct entities. So they are two separate lesions on a tooth around or on or in and around the tooth surface. That is this concomitant endoperioid lesion. So radiograph, you can see two lesions, one endodontic lesion and periodontal lesion. They left untreated, then they joined eventually. But it is very difficult to identify the true combined disease. True combined disease, another one you can see 2/3 of the root there is bone loss, calculus is present, and clinical examination revealed coronal color change. You can see dark color and pus excluding from the gingival surface. Vitality tests were negative. So that is about true combined disease. So the classification: primary endodontic lesion, primary periodontal lesion, then the secondary involvement with perio as well as endo, then comes the true combined lesion. In true combined lesion, concomitant lesion is also there, that act as a separate two lesions. So coming to the diagnosis. When coming to the diagnosis, the important thing is that you have to have a good clinical and radiographic examination for a very good diagnosis. So the data collected must include periapical radiograph, pulp vitality test, percussion, palpation, probing, sinus tracking, and another test for cracked tooth syndrome to see whether there is any fractures. So periapical radiographs, you have to look for the apical changes or all around the root. Pulp vitality test, which yields a main area for the periodontal or the pulpal origin. If there is a pulpal origin, then the pulp vitality will be negative, and if there is a periodontal origin, sometimes the pulp might show a positive reaction. Percussion, it is not related to the pulp, but you can see the periapical region of the tooth. Palpation, if there is any change in the soft tissue, that has to be visualized properly, and you have to make out if there is any symptomatic reaction happening around the tooth. Pocket probing will tell you whether there is a periodontal breakdown or not. And sinus tracking, of course, if there is a sinus, you have to track it with the help of a GP and expose with a radiograph. You can find out where is the origin of the infection. Then crack tooth syndrome, sometimes if there is a crack, you will use a tooth sleuth or a transillumination test to find out whether there is a fracture. But coronally only you can see with the help of transillumination. Tooth sleuth, you will try ask the patient to bite on it and you will try to recreate that same kind of pain which happens to be occur as a result of fracture. So it is very important, and at the same time it is very difficult to find out the cause for the pain, and all with all the findings you have to correlate and you have to form a diagnosis, because according to your diagnosis only you are going to treat. If your diagnosis is wrong, your treatment is going to be wrong. Coming to the treatment, decision making and prognosis. So the treatment, decision making and prognosis primarily depends upon the specific endodontic or periodontal disease. The main factor considered is pulp vitality and type and extent of the periodontal effect. So if the pulp is vital, then that means it is not an endodontic problem. It is a completely a perio problem. So that is one thing we have to find out, and depends upon the periodontal problem or the periodontal stage that decides how the tooth can be saved or not. Diagnosis of primary endo and primary perio disease usually present no clinical difficulty. In primary endo, the pulp is non-vital. In primary perio, the pulp is vital. So it's very easy for diagnosing primary cases. However, the diagnosis of combined endo-perio lesion could present a challenge, as they present clinically and radiographically very similar. The diagnosis is often tentative, with a definite diagnosis formulated following the treatment. The prognosis and treatment of each endo-perio disease type varies. Primary endo should only be treated by endodontic therapy and has a good prognosis. Primary perio should only be treated by periodontal treatment, and the prognosis depends upon the severity of periodontal disease and patient response to the treatment. So basically, primary endo, it has a very good prognosis because only endodontic therapy is required, whereas perio, it depends upon the stage of periodontitis and how the treatment responds to the patient or to the tooth. Combined lesions should be treated with endodontic therapy first. Treatment should be evaluated in 2-3 months, and then only you should go ahead with the periodontal consideration. The sequence allows for sufficient time for initial tissue healing and better assessment of periodontal condition to determine if the tooth needs any periodontal treatment or any surgical management. Prognosis depends upon the periodontal involvement and treatment. Cases of true combined disease usually have a more guarded prognosis. So when it comes to the treatment, first thing you have to look is whether the tooth is vital or non-vital. If it is non-vital, then it is endodontically treated. If it is vital, it has to be go for the perio treatment only. When it comes to the secondary involvement, first, as a general consideration, we always do, if the tooth is non-vital, we first follow with the endodontic treatment, then we will wait for some time how the tooth responds, then we will go into the second part, that is the periodontal treatment. But the periodontal treatment has its own limitation, because the stage you have to look into it, and according to that you will treat the case. If it's a single rooted tooth and it is periodontally affected, then the prognosis is really bad. Again, when it comes to the combined lesion, it depends upon the case to case basis, whether it is involvement of the periodontium, stage of the periodontal disease. According to that only we can do. If it is a multi-rooted tooth, then the periodontal treatment has a better result. I hope everyone understood that, and I hope everyone understood the class. If you have any doubts, you can contact me. Thank you.